Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, hey, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Thank you so much, Jess. Always great to hear from you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. Today's topic is supporting, securing, and enhancing Microsoft-centric environments. I am Keith Ward with Actual Tech Media, and I'm honored to be one small part of a great group of moderators that also features the incredible Jess, who you've met, as well as Scott Becker and Mackenzie Pudici. Now, during the EcoCast today, we are going to be giving away three $300 Amazon gift cards. What do you think about that? That should be enough to buy a ton of candy for Halloween, ensuring, of course, that your house will be the most popular one in the neighborhood. So stay tuned for that. All right. Let's get to the main event here, folks. And this is going to be the keynote that I am going to do via a series of poll questions for you. I want to see kind of where you are in terms of your Microsoft infrastructure. This is really important stuff for us to kind of get a sense of where the audience is. So I'd really appreciate your feedback to these questions. First question up today is, you can see it up there on your screen right now. Are you generally satisfied with your Microsoft environment? Just simple yes or no. And this doesn't have to be totally satisfied or anything. Are you relatively satisfied? Are you pretty happy or happy enough with where you are in with all your Microsoft stuff? You may have a little, you may have a lot, however much you have. Please let me know how satisfied you are with that. Microsoft, of course, is one of the key players in pretty much all aspects of IT, and that certainly includes infrastructure. I was covering them as a journalist for many years before I started doing webinar moderation. So this is something I am keenly interested in. So thank you very much for voting in that first poll. We've got several more to go, and it seems like for most part, you guys are satisfied. We're ticking up towards 77, 80% now being satisfied with your Microsoft environment. About 23% are not. And that is certainly going to be good for Microsoft to hear. And you can also let us know in that Q&A tab any kind of freelance answers you want to give. So if you want to elaborate any on some of these poll questions, feel free. Second question. Do you use Azure exclusively as your public cloud provider? Of course, Azure being Microsoft's answer to public cloud. For those of you who are Microsoft-centric shops, it's really interesting for me to know if you have standardized on Azure and if you are not looking around and you're pretty happy with everything that Azure gives you in terms of security and functionality, reliability, all of that stuff that is so important. And what I am seeing right now, keep on voting, is that this is a little bit closer, definitely. About 60% of you do not use Azure exclusively. About approaching 40% do use Azure exclusively as the public cloud provider. I was not actually sure how those answers were going to look at all. So that is really interesting stuff to know. Keep voting here for another few seconds. Now we're kind of settling in at 63%. You don't exclusively use Azure. About 37% you do use Microsoft's public cloud. Okay, if the answer to the last question was no, meaning you use many or at least more than Azure for your public cloud needs, what others do you use? I have three answers here. You can choose more than one if you use more than one of these. So your choices are AWS, Amazon Web Services, of course, GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, got a little bit of brain lock there, and other. That could be any other public provider. There's a whole bunch out there, as you know. So we're seeing other coming in about half of you, Google Cloud about 15%, Amazon about 31%. Now that does surprise me. I kind of thought they would be kind of reversed in that Amazon would be the top, that AWS would lead, but no, as of right now, the other category is leading. You are happy to let me know. Rick says he is using Oracle Cloud. I expected some of those too. Great. If you want to let us know in the Q&A what public cloud you are using, if you vote other, that would be fantastic. So we're still holding steady with other at about 54%, Amazon at 30%, GCP pulling up the rear at a respectable 15%. Okay, Prosper Gary uses SAP, and we're talking about OCI for Venkat. That is really good to see. So keep those votes coming while we move to the next poll question here in our little mini Microsoft infrastructure survey. Next up, how confident are you about Microsoft's built-in security? Now, these are radio buttons, so you can only pick one of them, and I've got some interesting choices here. Completely confident, reasonably confident, moderately confident, not too confident, and totally worried all the time. I haven't seen a single vote for totally worried all the time yet. That seems like good news. 4% of you are completely confident, 37% reasonably confident. The biggest one right now is moderately confident at 50%. So you've come to the right place here for this information. Not very confident, 9%. So only about 6% of you are completely confident. So and the other two top vote getters are reasonably confident and moderately confident. So you have some concerns, although you don't think it's a total Wild West out there on Azure and with the rest of your Microsoft security. So very interesting stuff there as well. And I think we've got the final question coming up here right now. And here we go. Has one or more elements of your Microsoft stuff, that could say stack, been attacked this year? Yes, no, and unsure. So can you tell if your Microsoft specific infrastructure, any parts of your Microsoft stack, whether that's M365, whether that's Azure or on-premises equipment, right now about 30% of you have been attacked. 56% have not. That's good. That's up over 60% now. And 14% of you are unsure if you have been attacked. So keep those votes coming in. We're still holding strong at 60% for you. Your Microsoft stack has not been attacked. About a quarter of you have experienced an attack with your Microsoft stuff, and 15% of you still aren't sure. And that to me kind of speaks to maybe observability issues with those of you who aren't sure. That's one thing that can really help you a lot. If you have solid observability, you may know more clearly where you're vulnerable, where those attack avenues are. So really good information with all of that. Folks, I appreciate these answers to the poll questions very much. This is fantastic stuff here. Now, with that, I'm going to get to our standard poll question that we open most of our events with. We will move to that one now, and then you'll get a little bit of a break on polls for a few minutes here. And that is, what is your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, not sure. Now, you may have voted in this poll numerous times before. We ask you to vote again if you have not voted in a while. Things may have changed in your environment. So please let us know. Refresh that information for us. We surely do appreciate it. It's kind of like those YouTube videos where they're constantly begging you to like and subscribe. And when you do that, they say, hey, it really does help the channel when you like our video. It really really, really, really helps a lot. So please, 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 please do like our videos. So I'm going to beg you similarly, please, 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 please vote in this poll. Let us know your time frame for updating your equipment or getting new equipment in there. Did I sound pathetic enough with my pleading? I certainly hope so, because those votes are coming in. Keep them coming in for another few seconds. And we are going to, well, let me see. Let me give a few results here. 12 to 24 months is the biggest vote getter here, with about 44% of you still on the horizon. 6 to 12 months is 20% of you. 0 to 6 months, so you're basically getting started or in the middle of something, is about 12%. Not sure is still about a quarter of you. So that's good to see too. That's the kind of thing our sponsors can really use as well. And with that, folks, time to get off of these poll questions and into the main event, into the center ring here. Let's go. What do you say, huh? We're going to lead this off with Rubrik today, a company you know about if you have been on our events. They are so good with their presentations, and the company is so innovative and all that. We love having them on with us. Presenting for Rubrik today are Kim Lambert, Principal Product Evangelist, and Drew Ressel, Technical GTM Lead for SaaS and Cloud. All right, they are in the house, as they say, and they are ready to go. Kim is leading this off, so I am going to hand this over to you right now. Take it away, Kim.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yes, I am Kim Lambert, here from Rubrik, one of the industry's leading data security companies. And Drew's on the line here to show you a quick demo of the solution. So you will not leave here today without seeing the product in action, I promise. Microsoft 365 is a tier 1 business critical application. Without your 365 data, Mailbox, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, your users are down. They're unproductive. And if you're in IT, guess what? You're the one then left scrambling if it's down. So unfortunately, targeted threat groups now know also how important this data is, and they're investing a lot of time, a lot of money into understanding how to launch successful ransomware attacks, different types of cyber attacks against it. And they're maliciously trying to delete files. So the threat is real. We've seen data that says 71% of Microsoft 365 users have experienced an account takeover. That's a stat not on this slide. 85% of users have experienced an email breach as well. So there are brand new threats and vulnerabilities that are being discovered monthly. But hackers continue to get even more creative. They're leveraging session cookies to bypass multi-factor authentication. They're exploiting what once was a technical differentiator for Microsoft 365 to now being used to hold cloud files hostage. Phishing campaigns are evolving. They're cumulative based on hackers getting more advanced each and every month. What's interesting is even the US government, CISA, they're warning Microsoft 365 users about targeted attacks, and they're issuing announcements and alerts via the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency website. So they're getting in using legitimate global admin credentials, and they're exfiltrating data, sensitive internal data, customer data within Exchange, and other 365 applications. It's clear that despite investments in infrastructure security tools, cyber criminals are still getting through to your data, and even your data backups. And when they take your data down, especially your Microsoft 365 data, they can take down your entire business. Would you be prepared to recover your Microsoft 365 data if you were hit by ransomware? And are you in a position to recover from data loss when data is targeted by a rogue user or even just accidentally deleted, which 80% of Microsoft 365 users have actually experienced? Although Microsoft is responsible for keeping its cloud functional, its subscribers, that's you, are responsible for protecting the data that you create within Microsoft 365. So on the left is an actual screenshot from Microsoft's best practices online documentation. It's an article called How to Recover from a Ransomware Attack. And the very first step in this documented process is for customers to verify your backups. And then they call out specifically how it should be your offline backups. So the screenshot on the right is the Microsoft Services Agreement itself. They're specifically recommending backing up your data using a third-party backup service. When it comes to your enterprise today, it's all around adding multiple layers of protection to your overall threat response. So perimeter security, network security, endpoint security, and application security. But of course, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when these layers are going to be breached. So no matter how much you've invested in them, they're certainly very important, but guess what? It still happens. So when you think about the SaaS space in general, those layers that are a part of the traditional defense and depth strategy are managed by your SaaS-based platform vendors. And it's part of why you make the switch to SaaS in the first place, right? Where the provider's taking ownership of those security layers. But this can make your life easier from a security perspective and put security out of your purview. But keep in mind that those layers for enterprise security are different for SaaS. For the SaaS-based world, those layers become identity and authentication layers. And the main entry point into the SaaS-based world is your user credentials and user logins, what threat groups actually use to gain access. For Microsoft 365, you also have, of course, the Microsoft native tool set. And they do follow some important concepts of zero trust data security. So trust no one, assume compromise for protection. But for Microsoft, it's broken up into 4 categories that are all really about complying with legal and regulatory standards. First, they say know your data and the different levels of protection needed. Understand your data landscape, identify important data across your hybrid environment. Then protect it to make sure that it's fully encrypted, restrict access, apply those encryption and access restrictions and visual markings. Prevent data loss, so that includes oversharing of sensitive data. So you want to detect risky behavior that you wouldn't expect to see. And then finally, govern your data. So retain what you need, delete what you don't. Because if the data is not in your environment, it can't be compromised. So in that regard, you want to automatically retain, delete, and store data and records for compliance as needed. So the way we see breaches is typically through compromise of admin credentials. Once an attacker has the global admin credentials, they essentially have the keys to do almost anything. They'll start by exporting data to their command and control servers, then delete some or all of your data, often by manipulating those retention policies that you have in place to delete your data. And then they drop the ransom note. So what do you do next? Do you restore from retention? Well, keep in mind the retention policies may have been manipulated to delete the data in the first place, because hackers can utilize the delete functionality of retention policies to remove all data from the environment automatically. Now, when that happens, there may not actually be even anything left to recover. And the issue in Microsoft 365 can be how complex it is to understand how to recover the data. For example, Exchange Online in particular requires some considerable skill and support when you're restoring deleted items. Now, if you have some data on litigation hold, that may be something you're thinking you could do. You could try to possibly restore it from that, but it's not straightforward. This could take days. It's really not a viable backup strategy, and there's no guarantee of recovery if you've been attacked. So then you're stuck negotiating or paying a ransom. And we're noticing that potentially other cloud accounts as well as data centers are breached as well. So if you think about Microsoft 365's tools as part of your defense in depth strategy, you have identity and authentication layers. But those identity and authentication layers can be breached. If that happens, where does that leave you? Microsoft recognizes this, and that's why they took an equity stake in Rubrik. They see us as a leader in data security that they want to partner with. We work very closely with them as a strategic partner. A tight technology and development interlock at the engineering, at the product levels is really key to how quickly Microsoft customers can benefit from Rubrik's security innovations and how effective the data protection is based on our deep integrations with Microsoft products and shared security insights. This partnership works so well because we have a joint zero trust approach to data resilience that integrates with native Microsoft security and access features. Because at Rubrik, we know that achieving the promise of zero trust security, it clearly requires more than just traditional infrastructure security methodology. It requires data security that restores data combined with infrastructure security to help you fully secure your data assets. And then, of course, secure your business so you're able to defend it against cyber attacks. And to do that, Rubrik takes a 3-pronged approach. Data resilience, so cyber-proofing your backup data from insider threats and ransomware with air-gapped, immutable, access-controlled backups, data observability, so continuously monitoring that data for ransomware, pinpointing it and managing sensitive data exposure in an attack scenario, and hunting for indicators of compromise. And then data remediation, both surgical data recovery and mass or granular recovery to rapidly restore your apps in the enterprise, your files, your objects, while at the same time looking to avoid malware reinfection that can be a risk when you're restoring from a compromised backup of your data. And this all happens within SaaS-based Rubrik Security Cloud. And with Rubrik Security Cloud, you can keep your data secure, you can monitor risk, and you can quickly recover it wherever it lives across enterprise, cloud, and SaaS like Microsoft 365. Because while Microsoft offers tools to help you control access, to keep attackers out, the compliance tools, again, to help you schedule deletions so you don't keep data longer than you need to, the classification and search tools to help you comply with certain regulations and e-discovery. But for recovery from ransomware or accidental deletion or long-term retention for everyday instances where you need to, say, recover 60, 90-day-old Microsoft 365 data that's been lost and that you can't recover with the recycle bin or based on versioning, that's where Rubrik comes in with something that's consistent across the board for all Microsoft 365 applications that we protect. And with Rubrik for Microsoft 365, you have that isolated copy of your data in Azure, but physically separated from your Microsoft 365 data. And you can recover in bulk. You can use a granular 3-step recovery. You can easily locate data with real-time predictive global search. And Rubrik is eliminating the manual job scheduling. We're streamlining policy management across tens of thousands of users. When you have new users added, they're automatically protected by our SLA policies. And Rubrik auto-scales resources so that we can really seamlessly operate in and protect your large environments. With Rubrik, the ability to manage everything is through this SaaS-based Rubrik Security Cloud that lets you protect on-prem data, hybrid cloud, and all of your cloud applications that Rubrik protects as well. We do this with this logical, secure air gap between your core data and your backup data so that your data is protected by Rubrik and it's recoverable when you need it. Now, with Rubrik in the equation, in that same ransomware scenario, your data is now inaccessible through your Microsoft 365 admin account. If there is a case of accidental or malicious deletion or corruption, the recovery process is simple. It's as simple as going to your calendar backup, selecting a restore point, clicking restore. So how does this protection that allows for fast mass enterprise scale recovery work anyway? First, Rubrik runs a SaaS control plane. So when we protect your data, all we do is connect via API directly to your subscription in Azure. And we do a one-time authentication, so we never store your credentials. Once we make that OAuth connection, we start to deploy enterprise apps, and that allows us to read a bunch of data to push it back through. And when Rubrik takes the backups, the data is moved out of your tenant altogether and stored in a Rubrik hosted tenant in Azure. Now, this allows us to create a resiliency layer, an air gap, because again, the only thing that interacts with your data is Rubrik's application. And if an attacker gets in and gains those global admin permissions, they can't access the backup data. It's actually stored in physically separate data centers managed by a separate application. All the data is encrypted. On the back end, Rubrik's providing all the storage, and you're consuming this as a service. It's paid per user per year, and we provide all the storage needed from an Azure perspective. That's the piece around the architecture. How do we achieve the reliability? Microsoft APIs, they can be tricky to work with. So how do we optimize that? From a management standpoint, Rubrik manages everything through our SLA policy engine, an SLA domain. You just set the RPO, the RTO, you tell Rubrik how often to back up. You set the retention, you assign the SLA domain to M365 resources that you want to protect. On the back end, we're really reliable because we integrate with both the app-specific APIs in M365 as well as this overarching graph API. By using multiple APIs, that's helping us ensure that we can handle failures as they occur. Because if you're familiar with Microsoft, you know that the failures can happen. Look on the right here, this is showing how often these APIs can fail because so many people are accessing the application. So to combat this, at Rubrik, we've optimized the workflow so that if you're taking a OneDrive backup, for instance, and that API is unavailable, we can fail back to graph and vice versa. So this really allows us to be extremely reliable to help you ensure you get a good baseline backup and that the tool is actively backing up data and remains at 100% compliance. So that's the first piece, is the API and handling failure. The next big constraint in Microsoft's ecosystem can be the throttling. So when you push back large amounts of data from Microsoft, you're throttled. Why? They have hundreds of millions of users accessing the platform, and they have to guarantee performance. And where this comes into effect is when you're trying to recover lots of users at once. And you may need to do that. We've seen it happen. And what we've done is built an auto-scaling infrastructure that allows us to handle many backup streams at once. So we can load balance and we can spread the throttling across many enterprise apps and resources. And this allows us in a recovery to deploy many enterprise apps, hundreds, even thousands at a time, to ensure optimal performance. And it's all about how many jobs we can run at once. Say you're filling up a swimming pool with a garden hose. There's only so much water that you can push through a single hose. And what our architecture allows us to do is to run 1,000 garden hoses at a time, so that you can really achieve optimal performance. And what this equates to in the real world is being able to restore lots and lots of data all at once. So in our scale testing, we can recover quickly with more jobs in parallel. You're looking here at about 835 emails a second as an example. And what this equates to is being able to recover about 20,000 users a day from Exchange, and we're improving that all the time. One of Rubrik's biggest technical differentiators is being extremely performant via our architecture with how we deal with Microsoft's APIs and how we work with the throttling. Let's hop over to Drew's demo. He's going to give you a quick 3-minute overview of the Rubrik solution. Show us what this looks like.
So we landed by default here on their dashboard dedicated to 365. The very simple goal of this is to provide you a high-level overview of what's happening at any given time. That way you can say, are my backups working as I'd expect? If you tell Rubrik to take a backup every 12 hours, every 4 hours, every day, how do we highlight that information first foremost in the dashboard here? The other kind of part of the demo that's always really important here is obviously how do you restore. So in this case, I'll switch over to my OneDrive to kind of walk you through that workflow. The really important aspect here is, even though I'm talking about OneDrive, the UI is going to be identical to not only everything in the 365 space, whether it's Exchange, Teams, both chat and file data, or things around SharePoint sites. It's going to be almost identical, just slightly tweaked based off of the individual metadata for those different data sources. So we always had the status view. We're always going to have this calendar view, which provides you those point-in-time recovery options. So every green check mark here represents some kind of snapshot that happened on that day. So maybe I want to go back to last week as a quick example here. What I'll do is pick the specific point in time. So in this case, we're taking a daily backup. So I'll select that for recovery. And then from there, you tell Rubrik 2 pieces of information: what data to restore and where to bring that back to. So we can always do the restore at the top level. So think of it as restoring the entire OneDrive, or start getting as granular as we need to here, whether it is multi-selecting various folders or getting down to an individual file for restore as well. Once you have the file selected you want to bring back to the environment, like I said, the next step is to tell Rubrik where to bring that data back to. So we can restore it back to the original location, which is our default choice. So bring it back to my OneDrive. We can select any other user in the ecosystem to restore to, or we also have this download from cloud option where we'll zip up all the files and give you the ability to download it basically through the browser here. Just to keep my my demo environment a little clean, I'll select another user to kick off that restore job, do a final confirmation that this is what I want to recover. And then what you see down here in the bottom left is a quick info alert saying, hey, we started the restore job. Why I like to highlight this, it's kind of a good visual indicator of what's happening behind the covers. So like we mentioned, we use the Azure Kubernetes service. So we just set up a net new container that's going to interact with a dedicated enterprise application. That way we're not conflicting with any other kind of restore jobs we're doing or really any backup jobs we're doing from a throttling perspective. And this is how we're able to scale the solution and meet the demands of our large environments. We're having customers come to us and saying, hey, I have 7, 8, 9 petabytes of data in my ecosystem. How do I bring that data back as quickly as possible? And that's fundamentally what we're trying to do as part of an organization here. And obviously doing that directly in line with our colleagues on the Microsoft side. Last but not least, I'll switch over to the events tab just to kind of show you that you can monitor the progress of these jobs. So in this case, we can see the OneDrive job that I just kicked off just took a couple seconds to bring that data back into the ecosystem.
And the team here at Rubrik will be happy to do a deeper dive with anyone here on the call. We can dive into our data observability features for Microsoft 365. There's lots of other things to see, but overall, Rubrik's UI is built for the network operator, the security ops person, generalist to protect data. And we make this available through all sorts of constructs so that it's easy to protect your data, whether you're protecting SaaS, IaaS, enterprise apps in a data center. So regardless of what you're protecting, the workflow is basically identical. So just remember that. We've simplified this process. It's really easy to run reporting in governments. If you have folks that want to deploy as code or build as cloud architects in a DevOps fashion, everything in Rubrik consumes its own API. So everything's built on a REST API. We can automate with pretty much any third-party tool out there like Terraform, Splunk, Puppet, Chef, ServiceNow. So keep that in mind as well. So thanks everyone for coming along with us on this tour of Rubrik for Microsoft 365.
Wow, Kim and Drew, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that fascinating presentation. I loved the demo and all the great education and information that came our way. And now I've thrown up the next poll question. We always appreciate your feedback on additional resources you'd like to see from Rubrik. So please fill that out while we are hanging out here for another minute or two. There's a lot of questions we can't get to right now. Unfortunately, Kim and Drew cannot stick around with us, but the Rubrik team will be doing their best to respond to all these questions. I also want to remind everyone about the handouts. We've got a PDF from Rubrik all about hosted data protection for Microsoft 365. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go grab that now. It is a free PDF. Check that out for more details. And thanks to everyone who's responding to the poll. We do appreciate that feedback, as I have mentioned before, but I mentioned again. So now it is also time to give away our first gift card of the event. And the winner of the $300 Amazon Big Bucks is Gene Zimmerman from Illinois. Congratulations to you, Gene. Outstanding. Way to go. Buy lots of candy for the kids. All right. And with that, it is now time to move along to our final presentation in the EcoCast today. This session comes from Mimecast, and presenting for Mimecast today is Bob Adams, the senior sales engineer. Bob, it is always great to have you here. Thanks for being here today. I am now going to turn this over to you. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here. And, in terms of, presentations, I know it's quite a bit, and especially being the last one, want to at least try to hopefully make it entertaining. First step, though, is always making sure I can get the share to work. So bear with me while I get that working here. And just want to get this pulled up. To give you a quick, good to go. Should be seeing my slides here. That's showing up. Always want to hesitate for a second.
Yep. Yeah, we can definitely
Perfect.
see it.
All right.
You bet.
Perfect. I always want to make sure. I've had presentations I've attended where someone's on the third slide ahead, you realize you haven't seen what they've been talking about the whole time. So don't want to be that person. But again, thank you everyone for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you. I want to talk really just about supporting, securing, and improving Microsoft-centric environments, especially as that last part, as cyber threats evolve. I think we can all agree cyber threats evolve exponentially almost year over year. It's almost comical when you think to the past of what we used to keep us up at night to where we are today. Quick introduction. My name is Bob Adams. I've been with Mimecast for coming up on 10 years as of February. Prior to that, especially, I love that we're talking about Microsoft because I can look at my past 9 years prior to Mimecast at IBM, supporting Lotus Notes Domino, and say goodbye to that chapter of my life and look at Microsoft, because Microsoft definitely won the battle of email. But as we are on a centralized platform, many of us, how do we address those risks? Well, one of the things we really realize is Microsoft is the world's most popular productivity platform, hands down. One of the things I've often asked when I've done presentations is, what would your users say their most used application is? Some users might say Facebook or Instagram, right? No, the reality is, especially email and a lot of the tools that come with Microsoft. Today, there's over 1.2 billion users worldwide, 280 million active users per month, and over 90% of the Fortune 500 companies use Microsoft. There's a reason for that. It's a fantastic platform, fantastic tool. But there's a lot of things we also want to help address and supplement. That's why we don't just use Microsoft only tools. There's a number of things in your arsenal, and as well as that you learned about today. Now, the thing I want to talk about, it's a tale as old as time, especially the past several years. Business email compromise. Hopefully, learn some things along the way. But I wanted to actually start with a few interesting statistics I got from my friends at Arctic Wolf. One of them being 29.7% of business email compromise attacks. They accounted for about a quarter of the cases that they dealt with last year. Now, the thing to keep in mind is BEC often goes unreported. So I suspect that number is actually substantially higher. And the reason I want to set the stage with this is kind of why. Why do they do it? It's easy to execute. Scams work. Especially if you think over the past many years, we think of how attacks work. And yes, there's URL type attacks where attackers are crafting sophisticated links on websites or unknown malware. But over time, that's gotten a lot more difficult and requires a lot more skill sets. Instead, today, an attacker really just needs to know how email works and some of the basic tips and tricks that attackers use. And lastly, they need to know how to communicate with people. But the interesting thing is the industries that are targeted. I think everyone can immediately think the industry most targeted is those with money. Yes, financial institutes, right? Insurance. But there's a lot more. Virtually, let's be honest, everyone. But the top 5, starting with 5, will be legal and government healthcare. I talked to a lot of municipalities, local governments. They're fraught with issues, especially one of the big problems is a lot of them have to have a lot of data publicly available. So that's a mechanism attackers can use. We see manufacturing, especially if you have a secret sauce, a blueprint, or maybe in pharmaceuticals, they want that information. Education and nonprofit, and the number 2 surprised me for a minute, construction. Now, construction is a lot of information there. 2 kind of goes in hand with 5 on the government side too, because with construction, a lot of things happen. Let's say local towns, municipalities with budgets where they post that, locally here, I'm just based outside of Boston, a town in New Hampshire, last year got taken for $2.5 million. And that money was meant to rebuild bridges. In a town of about 6,500 people, it's a devastating loss. So I think we can all look at different industries and think back to a headline or a problem. And my goal is to make sure that everyone on this call never becomes the next negative headline. So let's have a quick review of business email compromise attacks over the years, especially the past 10 years or so. Now, might be a walk through memory lane for some people, and it's meant to be that way because, like I said, what keeps us up at night was an attack like this. This actually happened almost 10 years ago to Mimecast. Our controller at the time, Peter Fondini, got an email from our CFO at the time, Peter Campbell. Now, the email said, "Can we send a wire transfer today? I'm expecting to receive instructions and will forward soon for processing." Very sophisticated, high-level attack, right? I didn't need to create a website. I don't need to create amazing malware. It's knowing who to contact, who I need to pretend to be, and what I need to do. Now, through the evolution of this, we actually looked further at it. It impersonated our CFO, a basic display name attack. I'm sure something all of us see on a constant basis. Now, the important thing to keep in mind is it's not always about the executives. In this case, it was an executive, but it could be anyone in your organization used against each other. So you want to make sure you're looking at display name attacks across the board, but not just that. Furthermore, we looked at this attack, common verbiage. These attackers always want wire transfers, gift cards, payments. Now, there's a common trend in verbiage to identify. So now we can look for these things. And on top of that, the email, Mimecast, as well as many services, do anti-spoofing. You prevent emails coming from you to you. Those emails should be internal. But in this case, an email coming inbound, unless it's an authorized source, it shouldn't be happening. This attacker didn't use our domain, as I like to call it, Mimecast, right? An R and an N. Now, this is a very simple letter swap. L's and I's, T's and F's, 2 V's for W's, P's and Q's. Look at your domain and think of how many different ways it can be modified. But one thing I'll tell you, the sky's the limit. There's 100 plus top level domains. And if you try to register every single domain that looks like yours, you'll run out of money before attackers run out of domains. Now, there's other things like foreign character sets. Look up, take note, homoglyph attacks. Using foreign character sets as registering domains that can often look almost exactly like yours. Now, happy to say, Mimecast, we saw things like this. We quickly developed what's called our impersonation protection, and we stopped it. But attacks keep evolving, especially when we look at the attack happened July 29th, way back in 2015, which at that time was when the domain was registered. So when we built this out, this was unbelievable. We were actually first to market with business email compromise protection, and this has still continued to be a helpful piece of the puzzle. But it doesn't stop there, and there's a reason. Because I think we can all agree security has evolved. One of the things we realized, I like to have some fun here, blanket security, right? Many times in the past with our tools, it was an on-off setting. I want all of this done for all of my users. As we now know, users are different. Departments are different. People have different needs, requirements. One size doesn't fit all. And we also know is we can't put Band-Aids on the cracks in our foundation. We can't just put a small fix in place hoping it's going to be the long-term fix, because as we've seen, the rate in which attacks evolve and the way in which attackers are trying to target you is much faster than that Band-Aid can hold on to. So this quote here is something I've held on to for a long time. Our co-founder of Mimecast, Neil Murray, said it, and it always has resonated with me. The risk doesn't go away. It just changes its nature. Attackers aren't going away. They're just changing how they target you. They're not stopping targeting you. In fact, they're increasing their efforts. So let's talk through some real life scenarios you might deal with on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully not, but some of you maybe. An accounts payable scam, brand new attack. I'm sure none of us have ever heard of this. An accounts payable scam is quite common, but the difficulty is who's accountable here. So this here is an organization I recently worked with. Happy to say they're now a customer. They're using Microsoft 365, again, great platform, but you need an additional layer, and that's where we come in. Because many organizations tag all email as external. Right? Oh, we don't have to worry about inbound email. I let my users know, and they can see it's an external message. This isn't a bad approach. This was the approach we knew at the time, several years ago. What we've come to find out is if we're tagging every inbound email as external, it quickly becomes white noise to the user. So here's an actual scenario. This organization, they weren't using us. We were doing a back-end audit of them. And they got an email, display name attack from the user, Matthew. The attacker, as you can see, some of them are sophisticated. This one just looks like drag their finger across the keyboard to create that fanciful email address. Now they sent it to Stephen, which was in their payroll department. And again, shocking, change of direct deposit. Now the reason I bring this up is because this is a modern organization using 365, and they want to know how else they can protect their users. The email itself was, I changed my bank and would like to update my direct deposit details. Again, already key terms from 2015 that we're identifying, but also the attacker said, can you effect the change for current pay date? Not exactly how the user would speak. Now, I caught this during the assessment happened. Say I contacted the organization. They did stop this. This was one of multiple emails the user through Microsoft was sending back and forth. And even better, every single email they were tagging external. My favorite part, please pay attention. I don't think the users pay attention anymore. How do we get them to pay attention? How do we get them to take notice? Right? I'm sure many of you do awareness training and educate your users, but we also need point-in-time education and nudges and things like that. Now, a better response is required. We can block everything under the sun, but we also don't want to deal IT managers or directors and help desks with a boatload of false positives. We need a more nuanced approach. Block the bad, let through the good. But as everyone knows, there's some nuance. And that's where CyberGraph comes into play. This is an evolution beyond just email gateway or email security. Artificial intelligence is a key piece. And it's not just kind of the marketing buzzword of the past of next generation or X generation. Throughout our entire Mimecast stack, we leverage both artificial intelligence and machine learning. And CyberGraph is one key piece there. Whether you're 365 on-premises, G Suite, Mimecast integrates. And what we have is integration on the API side, sender and recipient intelligence, building a social graph. You and I communicate quite often. But also, if I get an email from someone I've never worked with, I need to have awareness on that. But I need specific details. And that driven protection is key because security isn't just blocking things. I hate to say it, users are part of our human firewall. Right? Users are an element of your security. It's a tough pill even for myself to swallow, but we do need to engage and educate those users. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk through another scenario. Number 2, a CEO fraud impersonation attack. I'll be honest, I've had conversations with executives, and it's not an easy one, especially when it's their fault. A C-level person doesn't typically like to be told that they did something wrong at times, but it does happen. So we have attacks like this. The cyber attack kill chain, I'm sure we're all familiar with. There's a reconnaissance phase, which is relatively easy because there's a lot of OSINT out there. But weaponization. Attackers are using things like trackers in emails, which trackers aren't bad. Marketing firms use them to see if you open up emails and such. But attackers can use them to see where you're located. This particular technology was developed because the person was normally working out of, I believe they were in Chicago, but they were, I want to say, at RSA, and they were at their hotel, and they got a phone call in their hotel room. And it was from a sales guy saying, hey, I know you're in San Francisco. I imagine you're here for RSA. I'm right around the corner. I'd like to buy a cup of coffee. Now, I think we can all agree if any salesperson ever did that to us, I'm not buying from them. Also, a little bit creepy. How are they doing that? They're using these trackers to see where you are. Attackers can see, okay, maybe, for example, Mimecast, I'm just outside of Boston. All of a sudden now I'm in London, likely at Mimecast's global headquarters in London. Or maybe I'm in Cabo on vacation. Now I can know where you are and use that in an attack. They do the simple display name attacks, of course. And you ever notice the verbiage is always urgent? Get this done. I can't talk right now, but get this done and we'll follow up later, but I need those $500 in gift cards for some random reason. So Mimecast has elements, of course, to identify and block these things, but we also want to break the cyber attack kill chain. We want to eliminate those trackers. We want to give you visibility into it, prevent the reconnaissance of knowing where you are, and also stop the delivery. On some of those fringe emails, right, maybe ones that aren't outright bad, but we want to give users pause, it goes into Mimecast through our scanners, through our social graph of CyberGraph. And one of the other things we can do is deliver a dynamic warning. We're not tagging every single email. That's not effective. And we also want to educate the user with specific information, not just please pay attention. Maybe something such as, this domain was created recently. This is their first email to your company. No one in your organization has ever applied to this person. Around 20 or so specific key indicators of compromise we look for, indicators of suspicion, not always bad. Now, let's say 10 users get an email. First user opens up, sees this tag, looks at the email. They know it's bad. They want to report it and mark it as dangerous. That is a dynamic tag. It updates for anyone who received that email. Now, of course, as administrators, you can remediate that message. Maybe the user was wrong. That can be reverted back to the benign tag. But the important part here is we're engaging with the users, not on every single email with a tag, because again, that falls off. We want to engage with them, educate them, and of course, make sure they know what to look for and why this happened. Reduce help desk calls and tickets. Another benefit from CyberGraph is this here loads every time you open the email. It's hidden. As a matter of fact, we're not tagging every email as external, so my inbox doesn't look like this. It looks like this. If I'm on my phone, same thing, my preview is not disturbed. I can still look at the email, first messages, and figure it out. I don't have that long, brutal tag. And then on the outbound side, that tag's removed, so external parties don't know that you're tagging emails nor what you're tagging them with. A lot of control and power. And for some reason, I don't know about you, I've talked to some people, they get offended when you tag their emails as suspicious. Why are you tagging my emails as suspicious? I'm not, just trying to educate my users. In this case, again, nobody has any idea except you and your environment and your users. But it doesn't stop there. We also have those pesky users who make mistakes. They send information to the wrong person. How do we stop that? An element of CyberGraph called misaddressed email protection. So if a user creates an email and they accidentally send it to dheston instead of dhiston@acme.com, a simple mistake. I mean, my name is Bob Adams. My parents weren't exactly very creative, but I've been known to get 1 or 2 wrong emails. So it does happen from time to time. Now, in this case, the employee is going to be sent the notification. We want to identify potential reasons why there might be an error. We're not just blocking it and it's out in the ether and no one knows where the email went. The user is given 2 actions. They can send it or don't. And as administrators, you can configure a default time limit to send that email. So after 30 minutes, if they don't take action, send the message, right? You can customize that. But it's powerful because it safeguards your data. There's a multi-layered approach, and of course, protects against costly damage. Depending on your industry, maybe healthcare, right? You don't want to send the wrong information to the wrong person. We want to stop those mistakes from developing into security incidents. And again, very quick, easy, understandable. The thing I've always loved about Mimecast is our teachable moments. So how sophisticated does my email security need to be? That's an often asked question. We just kind of took a trip down memory lane, and some of these things I hope we have in place today to stop, but many of them I talk to organizations on a day-to-day basis. It's a problem. So advanced business email compromise protection. This here is Mimecast's entry into what you may know as NLP, natural language processing. There's a million acronyms and initialisms in the industry, I understand, but this here is a key fundamental piece organizations need. Because Mimecast, as well as many gateways and things of that sort, you look for reputation checks and lookalike domains and spam, URLs, attachments. But like I said, business email compromise is a prevalent threat. Don't need to be the most sophisticated attacker. What you need to know is verbiage and words. So what business email compromise is able to do is identify those key areas and tag them, especially for administrators. This is an urgent email. They're sending from an unusual location. It's immediate, critical. They want a payment. It's a financial request. I trust you completely. Colloquialism, financial details, suspicious URLs. All of this is called out to administrators, protecting the users, but it's not just the header analysis and URLs and attachments. It's contextual understanding of the body, how people communicate. So this here is an important piece of Mimecast added to our stack recently and has been an incredible asset for organizations. So as I conclude, really the customer challenges that many of you face, these attacks are increasing in threat. There's a high monetary impact. Now, E3, E5 has elements of protection, but it's not enough. Right? The cost consolidation, I talked to organizations, it can be there, but in the long run, when one of these breaches hit, it offsets the cost of the necessary security. That Band-Aid, that crack in the foundation splits apart. The end users struggle to identify these attacks. They originate from compromised accounts or they use impersonation. They don't know what to look for. So we're protecting them, educating them with things like dynamic tags. Mimecast also has things like awareness training and an entire human risk management platform to give you a full in-depth look across your ecosystem. We know these users are susceptible. So we want to make sure the impact on productivity due to false positives is also mitigated. So protect your users, protect you, your IT team, your staff, your help desk. Make sure they're able to focus on the things relevant to you, protecting you day in and day out. So those lack of resources to configure and monitor, I always want to highlight Mimecast is one platform. Well, multiple products, but one console to manage. So you don't log into 6 different things. It's one UI managed through different dashboards, all unified, working together. It's drinking from a fire hose. I completely understand, but I want to thank everyone for their time because we're purpose-built to protect your organization. We have a lot of different things we can do. So we're more than happy to follow the conversation up at a later time. Thank you everyone for your time, and I hope you have a great day.
Hey, thank you so much, Bob, for that amazing presentation. I love that. And right now I've put up the final poll question of the event today. What additional information would you like about the Mimecast solution? Please let them know. I think after that presentation, there's probably going to be a lot of folks who want to reach out to Mimecast. I would point out one quick thing here. Bob talked about how some people get offended when you mark their emails as suspicious. Well, if you get an email from me, you should assume it's suspicious because of some of the things I write in my emails are very worthy of being marked suspicious. So that should kind of be your default position when you see an email coming from my address. So yeah, so I own that. I'm not offended by it. I expect it. And I think that's probably a good position to maintain. So with that, folks, I also want to remind everyone about the handouts. We've got a link from Mimecast for a free 30-day threat scan. Now, does that sound like something useful for your organization? Yeah, I thought so. So be sure to check that out right now. There's a QR code that takes you there. Free 30-day threat scan. Great stuff. Now, Bob unfortunately used up all of his time with that presentation, so we cannot do any Q&A, but I wanted to mention that the Mimecast team will be following up with all of those great questions that came in, so have no fear. And with that, folks, I'm coming up to my final couple of duties here in the event today. And the first thing there is to give away the final 2 prizes of the event. We had 3 $300 Amazon gift cards, and we've got 2 more to give away, and we've got winners for those. Now, as we said at the beginning, you do need to be present throughout the event to be eligible to win any of our prizes. And the winners for today are Thomas Bizak from Michigan and Travis Ferreira from Massachusetts. So congratulations to all of our winners today. That would be Thomas, Travis, and Jean. We will be in touch ASAP about claiming your prizes. Okay, so got a question for you now, which isn't part of a poll, but it is a question. If you liked what you saw today, would you be interested in Actual Tech doing something like this for your product or solution or company? Because we absolutely can do that for you. There's an email contact up there, connect@actualtechmedia.com. We can put you in one of our megacasts or ecocasts. We can also build a custom event just for you. We do a bunch of those as well. So let us know if you would like to work with us on something like that. And finally, I wanted to let you know about an awesome event that is coming out on Halloween. So if you're looking for something to do on Halloween and you have to hang out in the office or at work anyway, you might as well spend part of that time with us, right? This is a megacast on next generation endpoint management and protection solutions and strategies. Again, Halloween, Thursday, October 31st at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We promise you a spooky good time, and I will find some really bad puns to use between now and then and make sure I get through all of them, all of my Halloween bad dad jokes during that webcast. So you are not going to want to miss that one just for the humor itself. What do you think? I look forward to seeing you on that in just a couple of more days. And with that, folks, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank our presenters today for putting together those awesome presentations, the demos. And I especially want to thank Mimecast and Rubrik for making this whole shindig possible in the first place. I am not here and you are not here without them. So kudos to them. And finally, last but never ever least, I want to thank all of you attendees for being here, for listening in, for your interest in this topic, for your great questions. Can't wait to see y'all on Thursday. For me right now, that's a wrap. Have a great rest of your day, folks.